Some gifts are curses dressed in moonlight. Sarah had learned to live with death long before she understood what it meant to truly live. The visions came with her first shift at 16, fragments of endings that played behind her eyes whenever she looked too long at another wolf. A flash of blood on snow, a final breath rattling in collapsed lungs, the precise moment when light faded from eyes that would never open again. She saw how everyone would die, the elder who would choke on his own pride during a challenge, the pup who would fall through ice 3 winters hence, the omega who would bleed out in childbirth, calling for a mate who wouldn't arrive in time. Death was written in the air around them like smoke, and Sarah alone could read its language. So she learned not to look, learned to keep her eyes on the ground, her voice soft, her presence forgettable. If she didn't see, she couldn't know. If she couldn't know, she couldn't carry the weight of futures she had no power to change. Freak, they called her when she warned the hunter about the bear. Witch, they whispered when she told the mother to keep her son from the river. Even when her warning saved lives, they feared her. Fear turned to hatred. Hatred turned to exile. The rejection came on the winter solstice, under a moon so full it seemed to swallow the sky. "You are Omega in name only," Alpha Thorn declared before the assembled pack. "Your blood is tainted with unnatural sight. You bring darkness to our sacred grounds." Sarah didn't argue, didn't plead. She simply looked at him one last time and saw nothing, no vision, no death. Just the Alpha standing there, alive and whole, in a way that should have shown her his ending. It was the first time in 4 years that she'd looked directly at someone and seen nothing but the present moment. The wrongness of it crawled under her skin like ice. But Thorn was already turning away, already gesturing for the guards to remove her from pack lands. So Sarah walked into the snow-covered forest without looking back, carrying only what she wore and the terrible gift that had destroyed everything she'd ever known. 3 weeks passed in the wilderness, 3 weeks of hunting rabbits, sleeping in caves, avoiding the territories of other packs who would kill a lone omega on sight. 3 weeks of seeing death everywhere she looked, in the deer she killed for food, in the ravens circling overhead, in her own reflection in frozen streams. Except once. She'd been gathering deadwood near a frozen river when movement caught her eye. A massive wolf limped through the trees, dark fur matted with blood, each step labored. Not just any wolf, an alpha. She could tell by the size, the bearing, the way even wounded he moved like violence contained in flesh. Sarah should have run, should have hidden, should have done anything except what she did. She looked and saw nothing. No vision of death, no glimpse of his ending. Just a wounded wolf collapsing in the snow, breathing hard, eyes closing as consciousness left him. The absence of vision was so shocking that Sarah moved without thinking. She dropped the wood and ran to him, her hands already reaching for the silver-laced arrow buried in his shoulder. She knew silver, knew how it burned and poisoned, knew he would die if it stayed. Her fingers closed around the shaft. The wolf's eyes snapped open, molten gold, furious, feral. A growl rumbled from deep in his chest, a sound that promised death. "I'm helping," Sarah said quietly, holding his gaze. "This will hurt." She pulled. The wolf's howl shattered the winter silence, echoing through the mountains like a declaration of war. But the arrow came free, and immediately the wound began to close. Slower than it should, but healing nonetheless. Sarah backed away, giving him space, watching as the massive wolf struggled to his feet. He was easily twice her size, powerful even in injury. He could kill her with one snap of those jaws. Instead, he shifted. The transformation was brutal, bones cracking and reforming, fur receding into skin, marked with old scars and new blood. When it finished, a man stood before her, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and those same golden eyes that now studied her with dangerous intelligence. "Who are you?" His voice was gravel and smoke. No one. It was the truth. She was packless, nameless, nothing. Your Omega. Was. He tilted his head, considering her. "And yet you didn't run from an alpha." "Should I have?" "Most would." Sarah met his eyes directly, something no Omega should do, and looked for death. Looked for the ending that should be written in the space around him. But there was nothing. Just this moment. Just him, bleeding and whole and impossibly alive in a way that defied everything her gift had ever shown her. "Who are you?" she asked. "Lucian." He paused, then added with something like bitter amusement, "Former king of the Eastern Reach." A king. She'd saved a king. Or former king, which meant he'd been overthrown, cast out, left to die in the wilderness like her. "Why can't I see it?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "See what?" "Your death." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I see everyone's death, have since I was 16. But when I look at you, there's nothing." Lucian went very still. "A death seer." "Yes." The old text spoke of them, rare, powerful, usually killed by their own packs out of fear. "Usually exiled first," Sarah corrected softly. Understanding flickered across his face. "So, we're both cast out." "Seems that way." Silence fell between them, heavy with recognition. Two broken things meeting in the snow. "The silver arrow," Lucian said finally. "Who shot you?" "My own guard, or what used to be my guard." His jaw tightened. "My brother believed I was too soft to rule. That mercy was weakness. When I refused his demand to execute prisoners from a border dispute, he orchestrated a coup. And now you're here. And now I'm here." He looked at her with new intensity. "If you can truly see death, then tell me, did you see his?" "Your brother's?" "Yes." Sarah hesitated, then shook her head. "I haven't looked at him. I don't look at people I haven't met." "But you could. I could." She understood what he was asking. Information, advantage, a weapon made of foresight. "But I don't use my gift that way." "Why not?" "Because knowing how someone dies doesn't tell you how to live." Lucian studied her for a long moment, something like respect dawning in those golden eyes. "You're strange for an Omega. You're bleeding for a king." Almost, he smiled. Then the moment broke as distant howls echoed through the forest, organized, purposeful, hunting. "They're tracking me," Lucian said grimly. "My brother wants confirmation of death." "Then we should move." "We." Sarah looked at him, this king without a crown, this alpha without a pack, this man whose death she couldn't see and whose presence felt like the first solid ground she'd found in years of drowning. "I told you," she said. "I see everyone's death, everyone except you, which means either you're already dead or you're the only person I've met who might actually survive what's coming." "And you want to survive." "I want to understand why the goddess would give me a gift that only brings suffering." She met his eyes. "Maybe you're the answer." Lucian extended his hand. "Then let's find out together." Sarah took it. His palm was warm, calloused, alive. And for the first time in 4 years, she felt something other than the weight of inevitable endings. She felt possibility. They moved through the forest for 3 days, staying ahead of the hunting party whose howls grew fainter with distance. Lucian knew the territory well, hidden paths, streams that masked scent, caves where they could shelter from the worst of the winter storms. Sarah watched him work, noted the way he moved despite his injuries, the quiet competence in everything he did. A king, even cast out, a leader, even alone. And still, when she looked at him, she saw no death. "You're staring," Lucian said on the 3rd night as they huddled around a small fire in yet another cave. "Sorry." Sarah dropped her gaze to the flames. "It's just strange. Everyone else, I see it constantly, their deaths playing behind my eyes like prophecy. And with me? Nothing, blank, like looking at a wall where a window should be. Lucian poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. Maybe I'm not meant to die. Everyone dies. Not everyone has a death seer tell them otherwise. Sarah pulled her threadbare cloak tighter. Or maybe your death is so far away I can't see it yet. Maybe you'll live to be ancient and die in your sleep. That would be disappointing. She almost laughed. You want a violent death? I want a meaningful one. He looked at her across the flames. My father died defending our borders from raiders. My grandfather died breaking a siege that would have destroyed our people. Every king in my line has died with purpose. And you think exile robs you of that? I think hiding in caves while my brother destroys everything I built isn't exactly legendary. The bitterness in his voice was familiar. Sarah had felt the same, cast out, powerless, watching from the edges while life continued without her. So what will you do? She asked quietly. Survive, gather allies, take back what's mine. He said it simply, as if retaking a kingdom was no more complicated than hunting deer. Just like that? No, not just like that. Lucian's expression hardened. But I'm not dying in exile. I'm not letting my brother's cruelty become law. And I'm not abandoning the wolves who stayed loyal, even if I can't reach them yet. Sarah studied him, this alpha who chose mercy over violence, who saw exile as temporary rather than final. You really believe you can win? I have to believe it. The alternative is accepting that mercy is weakness, that compassion is failure, that the only way to rule is through fear. He met her eyes. I refuse to accept that world. Something in Sarah's chest tightened. She'd spent 4 years believing her gift made her cursed, that seeing death meant accepting its inevitability. But Lucian spoke of choice, of fighting against fate. What if your brother is stronger? She asked. What if... The vision hit her without warning. One moment she was sitting by the fire. The next, she was standing in a great hall of stone, watching wolves in armor drag prisoners before a throne. Lucian's brother sat there. She knew him instantly by the resemblance, the same dark hair and golden eyes. But where Lucian's gaze held depth, his brother's held only hunger. Traitors to the crown, the brother declared, gesturing to the prisoners. The punishment is death. But Sarah saw more than the scene. She saw the deaths, each prisoner's ending playing out in rapid succession. The young guard who would have his throat torn out. The elder who would bleed slowly, crying for mercy that wouldn't come. The female Omega who would watch her mate die before her own ending. Then the vision shifted, showed her something else. A shadow moving through the hall, something that wasn't wolf. Red eyes gleaming in darkness. A presence that made the air itself feel wrong. The vision shattered. Sarah gasped, coming back to herself. Lucian was beside her instantly, hands on her shoulders, steadying her. What did you see? Your brother, executing prisoners. She tried to steady her breathing. But there was something else. Something in the shadows, not wolf. Lucian went very still. Describe it. Red eyes, a presence that felt ancient, wrong. She looked at him. What would have red eyes? Vampire. The word fell like a stone into dark water. They're myth, Sarah said, but doubt crept into her voice. Aren't they? My great-grandfather thought so too, until a coven of them nearly destroyed the Eastern Reach 60 years ago. Lucian's jaw tightened. They were driven beyond the scorched wastes, forbidden from entering wolf territories under penalty of death for both parties, vampire and any wolf who harbored them. But if your brother made alliance, then he's broken the oldest laws we have, laws written in blood after the last vampire war. Lucian stood abruptly, pacing. If he's brought them back, it's not just about the throne anymore. It's about survival of our entire kind. Sarah watched him process this, saw the weight of it settle on shoulders that already carried too much. How do you know all this? About vampires, I mean. Because part of a king's education is learning from our worst mistakes. My father made sure I knew every detail of the vampire wars, the tactics they used, the weaknesses we exploited, the treaties that ended the conflict. He turned to her. Did your vision show you anything else? Sarah closed her eyes, reaching for the memory. The hall was different than it should be. Darker, colder, like something was draining warmth from the very stones. That's how they mark territory, by changing it, corrupting it. There's more. She hesitated. I saw deaths, the prisoners' deaths, but I also saw absence, like holes in reality where deaths should have been, but weren't. The vampires. Maybe, or something else. I've never seen anything like it. Lucian crouched before her, bringing his eyes level with hers. Can you look again? Try to see more? It doesn't work that way. Visions come when they come. I can't force them. Even if you tried? Sarah wanted to say no, wanted to explain that her gift was burden enough without deliberately seeking more horror to witness. But the urgency in Lucian's voice, the desperate need to understand the threat facing his people, she recognized it. I can try, she said quietly, but I need something, an anchor, something connected to your brother or the throne. Lucian was silent for a moment, then reached into his tunic and pulled out a ring, heavy gold, engraved with the crest of the Eastern Reach. This was my coronation ring. My brother would have claimed it when he took the throne. But you have it. I removed it before the coup. Knew if my brother got his hands on it, it would legitimize his rule. He placed it in her palm. Will this work? The metal was warm from his body heat. Sarah closed her fingers around it, feeling the weight of kingship, of power, of all the choices that led to this moment. I'll try. She closed her eyes and reached, not with her physical senses, but with whatever twisted part of her soul the goddess had marked with foresight. Reached through the connection between this ring and the throne it represented. Images flooded her mind. The great hall, darker now, torches burning with sickly green light. Lucian's brother on the throne, but hunched, diminished, a puppet rather than a king. Behind him, the shadow with red eyes, whispering words that Sarah couldn't quite hear but felt in her bones like poison. Then the shadow turned, and she saw its face, pale as death, beautiful and terrible, with a smile that promised eternity and delivered only ending. You, it said, though it shouldn't have been able to see her. Little death seer, little prophet, you cannot hide from me. Sarah tried to break the vision, to pull back, but the vampire's presence held her like chains, red eyes boring into hers across time and space. He thinks he can reclaim his throne, the vampire continued. Voice silk and venom. He thinks mercy will save him. But you see truth, don't you? You see that compassion is just another word for weakness, that in the end, only power survives. No, Sarah whispered. Yes, look at him, your alpha who refuses to kill, who chose exile over executing his enemies, who would rather lose everything than become what he must become to win. The vampire leaned closer, though it was only vision, only image. He will fail. He will die. And you will watch, little seer. You will watch and know you could have changed nothing. The vision shattered with brutal force. Sarah came back to herself screaming, the ring burning her palm like hot iron. She threw it away instinctively, and Lucian caught it before it hit the cave floor. Sarah, he pulled her against him, and she clutched at his shirt, shaking violently. What happened? It saw me, she gasped. The vampire. It saw me through the vision and it spoke to me. That's impossible. I know. But it happened. She pulled back enough to look at him. Lucian, it's not just working with your brother. It's controlling him, using him, and it knows you're coming. Then we change our approach. Find allies first. Build strength. No. Sarah grabbed his arms. You don't understand. It wants you to delay, wants you to give it time to entrench itself deeper. Every day you wait is another day it corrupts your territory. Then what do you suggest? I don't know. The admission felt like defeat. But I know that thing is more dangerous than any alpha. And I know that it's right about one thing. What? You're going to need more than mercy to defeat it. Lucian held her gaze, and in his eyes she saw the war being waged, between the king he'd tried to be and the king he might have to become. I won't become my brother, he said finally. I won't rule through fear. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to survive. Sarah touched his face, the gesture more intimate than she'd intended. Because you're the only person whose death I can't see, which means either you're important to whatever's coming, or you're the key to stopping it. Or I'm already dead and you just can't see it. Then why did I save you? The question hung between them, unanswered and unanswerable. Finally, Lucian covered her hand with his. We should rest. Tomorrow, we start looking for allies. Who will believe a fallen king and an exiled Omega? Anyone who still remembers what we're fighting for. They settled on opposite sides of the fire, but sleep didn't come easily. Sarah lay awake, listening to the wind outside and the steady rhythm of Lucian's breathing. Tomorrow they would leave this cave, this temporary refuge, and step back into a world that wanted them dead or gone. But for tonight, in the darkness and the cold, she had found something she hadn't expected. Not safety, not home, but the fragile beginning of hope. They found the first ally by accident, 3 days later, when a trap meant for rabbits caught something far more dangerous. The snarl reached them first, low, pained, furious. Lucian signaled for Sarah to stay back as he approached the deadfall, but she followed anyway. By now she'd learned that staying back meant being useless, and useless meant being left behind. A wolf thrashed in the crude cage of branches and rope, gray-furred and bleeding from a gash across the shoulder. Female, Sarah realized, and alpha, based on size and the pure rage emanating from her struggling form. Easy, Lucian said, keeping his voice calm as he circled the trap. We'll get you out. The wolf snapped at him, teeth gleaming. Or we could leave you here to freeze, he continued conversationally. Your choice. Sarah looked at the trapped alpha and felt the familiar pull, the urge to see, to know how this would end. She tried to resist, had been trying for days now, but the gift didn't care about her preferences. The vision came. She saw the gray wolf standing on a battlefield, blood matting her fur, surrounded by the dead. But she was laughing, actually laughing, as she charged into another wave of enemies, saw her fall, finally, beneath overwhelming numbers, saw her die with teeth still bared in defiant joy. A warrior's death, proud, violent, free. The vision faded. She dies in battle, Sarah said quietly, years from now, still fighting. Both Lucian and the wolf went still. Then the wolf shifted, bones cracking, form changing, until a woman crouched where the wolf had been, mid-30s, with gray-streaked dark hair and scars across her bare shoulders. You're a death seer, the woman said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you saw my ending. Yes. Tell me. The woman's eyes were sharp, calculating, all of it. Sarah hesitated, but something in those eyes demanded honesty. You'll die in battle, outnumbered but unbroken. You'll be laughing when it happens. Silence. Then the woman started laughing now, deep, genuine laughter that echoed through the forest. A good death, Better than I deserved, probably. She looked at Lucian. You're the king everyone thinks is dead. News travels fast. News of fallen kings travels faster. She gestured to the trap. Get me out and I'll tell you something worth knowing. Lucian worked the rope while the woman pulled from inside. Within minutes, she was free, already healing from the minor wounds, seemingly unbothered by her nakedness in the winter cold. I'm Kara, she said, pulling on clothes she'd stashed nearby. Former captain of the Western Guard. Former a lot of things lately. Why former? Sarah asked. Because I objected when the new regime started executing prisoners instead of ransoming them. Turns out objecting gets you labeled traitor. Kara buckled her belt. So now I'm here, living off what I can hunt, avoiding patrols. Same as you, I'd guess. How many others? Lucian asked immediately. How many objected? To the executions, maybe 20% of the guard? To the Vampire Alliance? Kara's expression darkened. All of us, every single wolf with sense knows that's suicide. Vampire Alliance, Lucian repeated. So it's confirmed. More than confirmed. Your brother's parading his new advisor around like he's proud of the corruption. Kara spat to the side. Thing called itself Marcus. Talks pretty about power and unity, but anyone with eyes can see it's draining life from the territory itself. Sarah felt cold that had nothing to do with winter. What do you mean draining? The land is dying, trees withering, streams running foul, even the air tastes wrong near the capital. Kara looked between them. Whatever deal your brother made, it's killing everything. Give it another season and there won't be a territory left to rule. Then we don't have another season. Lucian's voice was hard, decisive. We need to gather everyone who still opposes this. Everyone who remembers what we're supposed to stand for. Easier said than done. They're scattered, hiding, some probably dead already. Kara studied him. What's your plan? Storm the capital with a handful of rebels? If necessary. You'll die. Not according to her. Lucian nodded toward Sarah. She can't see my death. Kara's eyebrows rose. Can't or won't? Can't. When I look at him, there's nothing. No vision. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. It's never happened before. Huh. Kara considered this. So either he's unkillable or your gift is broken. Or he's important to whatever's coming, Sarah countered. Important enough that the goddess hides his fate. Goddess, vampires, death visions. Kara shook her head. Never thought I'd be back in the realm of legends and prophecies. I'm a soldier. I deal in steel and tactics. Then deal with this tactically, Lucian said. How many loyal wolves can we realistically gather? In the Western Territory, maybe 30 who I know personally. In the North, probably twice that. They've always been more traditional, less likely to accept vampire corruption. East and South? She shrugged. Anyone's guess. So, 100, maybe less. Against how many? Your brother has at least 300 in the capital garrison, more if he calls in the border patrols. 3-to-1 odds. Closer to 5-to-1, accounting for the vampires. Lucian looked at Sarah. Can you see it? The battle? She didn't want to. Didn't want to watch futures playing out in blood and failure. But she closed her eyes and reached anyway, letting the gift pull her forward through time. Images flashed. A smaller force charging uphill against fortified positions. Wolves falling, one after another. Deaths she recognized from 100 previous visions. Kara laughing even as she went down, just like she'd seen. Others, names she didn't know yet, dying bravely but dying nonetheless. But then the vision fractured, showed her something else. Multiple futures branching like cracks in ice. In one branch, they lost completely, scattered and destroyed. In another, they took the capital, but at devastating cost. In a third, the vampire stood in a circle of fire, surrounded by wolves who couldn't approach because something in the flames themselves rejected their nature. and Sarah stood at the circle's edge, light pouring from her hands, holding the barrier while Lucian fought his brother in single combat. 2 paths, she gasped, coming back to herself. If we attack directly, we lose. Most of us die. But if we can separate the vampire from your brother first, isolate it somehow, we have a chance. How do you isolate a vampire? Kara asked skeptically. Fire, Sarah said with certainty she couldn't quite explain. Sacred fire, the kind the ancients used in cleansing rituals. Lucian and Kara exchanged glances. The old temples, Lucian said slowly. There's one north of here. Abandoned for decades. If the sacred flame still burns, then we'd have a weapon. Kara nodded. Still need numbers, though. Can't fight an army with hope and fire. No, but we can fight smart. Lucian's expression sharpened. We divide their forces. Small raids on supply lines, scattered attacks across multiple territories, make them think we're everywhere at once. Stretch their numbers thin. Guerrilla tactics. Kara smiled grimly. I like it. Still need bodies, though. Then we start recruiting. Every exile, every dissenter, every wolf who remembers what we're supposed to be. Lucian looked at Sarah. And we use what you can see to our advantage. If you can show people their deaths, show them what they're dying for. They'll follow someone who gives their ending meaning. Sarah finished. You're asking me to use my gift as a weapon. I'm asking you to use it as truth. Sarah wanted to refuse, wanted to say that her gift had brought nothing but suffering. But she thought about the gray halls she'd seen, the land dying, the wolves being executed for the crime of compassion. Thought about Lucian trying to build something better than his brother's cruelty. I'll try, she said finally. Good enough. Lucian extended his hand to Kara. Are you with us? Kara clasped his forearm in the warrior's grip. All the way to the end, whichever end that is. She looked at Sarah. You said I'd die laughing. That true? Yes. Then it'll be a good death, and that's all any warrior can ask. They made camp that night with 3 instead of 2, and for the first time since exile, the task ahead felt possible. Not easy, not guaranteed, but possible. And we invite you now to mark your presence with us. Tell us where in the world you're hearing this tale, and what hour these northern confessions reach you. We wish to know how far this story of sight and shadow travels, and at what moments it finds shelter in your listening. The old temple rose from the forest like a broken tooth, its stone walls covered in moss and thyme. But as they approached, Sarah felt something, a warmth that had nothing to do with the winter air, a presence that made her gift quiet for the first time in days. The sacred flame, Lucian breathed. It's still burning. They pushed through the collapsed entrance and found themselves in a circular chamber. At the center, impossibly, a flame burned on an altar of white stone. Not red-orange like normal fire, but pale silver-blue, casting shadows that seemed to move with purpose. How is it still lit? Kara whispered. After all these years? Because it's not normal fire. Lucian approached the altar carefully. The ancients bound it to the land itself. As long as wolves still walk these territories, it burns. Sarah moved closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. The flame didn't burn hot. Instead, it felt like cool water against her skin, like moonlight made solid. When she extended her hand toward it, the fire reached back, wrapping around her fingers without consuming. Sarah, don't, Lucian started, but stopped when he saw her face. It's showing me, she whispered, showing me how to use it. The vision came different this time, not death and endings, but purpose and possibility. She saw herself standing in a circle of this same silver fire, saw how it would burn away shadow without touching flesh. Saw how vampire eyes would turn away from its light, how ancient power would recoil from its purity. But she also saw the cost, saw herself burning from the inside out, the sacred flame consuming the very gift that let her channel it. Saw her own ending, finally, after years of being blind to it. She would die turning the vampire's power back on itself, would burn away the corruption at the cost of her own light. "We can use this," she said, pulling her hand back, "but only once, and only if we're certain." "Certain of what?" Kara asked. "That we can win." Over the next week, they gathered allies. Kara's contacts in the Western Territory came first, hardened warriors who'd been waiting for someone to lead them. Then word spread to the north, where traditional packs still remembered the vampire wars and wanted no part of history repeating. Sarah met them all, looked at them all, saw most of their deaths. The young warrior who would take an arrow meant for his captain, the grizzled veteran who would hold a doorway against impossible odds while others escaped, the scout who would die alone in the snow, having delivered intelligence that would turn the battle. She told them what she saw, everyone, gave them the choice to walk away. None did. "Death comes for us all," the veteran said. "At least this way, it'll mean something." By the end of the second week, they had 83 wolves, not enough to match the capital's garrison, but enough to be dangerous, enough to make a difference. Lucian spent his days drilling them, turning disparate fighters into a cohesive force. But the nights belonged to strategy sessions with Sarah and Kara, the three of them hunched over crude maps drawn in dirt, planning how to retake a kingdom. "The vampire will be the key," Lucian insisted. "If we can separate it from my brother, expose the alliance before the entire court, we undermine everything." "Easier said than done," Kara argued. "That thing doesn't leave your brother's side. Then we draw it out." Sarah traced a line on the map. "Vampires are predators. They respond to threat, to challenge. If we make ourselves too dangerous to ignore, it'll come for us itself," Lucian finished, "leading us away from the capital." "Into an ambush," Kara added. "Sacred fire, the Death Seer, and whatever else we can throw at it." "It won't be that simple," Sarah warned. "When I touched the sacred flame, I saw what it would cost. The fire needs a conduit, someone to channel it." "You," Lucian said quietly. "Yes, but it will burn through me. The gift, the sight, maybe my life itself." She met his eyes. "I'm telling you now because you need to plan for after, for when I'm not here to show you what's coming." "No." The word came fierce, absolute. "We find another way." "There isn't one." The vision was clear. "Visions can be wrong." "Can they?" She gestured at the camp around them. "I've told 83 wolves how they'll die. How many have been wrong so far?" Silence. Because the answer was none. Every death she'd foreseen had come exactly as she'd described when they'd tested her gift in small skirmishes. "Then we change the circumstances," Lucian said stubbornly. "We make a future that doesn't include your sacrifice. Some futures are inevitable, and some are worth fighting to change." He grabbed her shoulders. "You're the first person I've met who sees me as something other than a failed king. The first who looked at me and saw possibility instead of endings. I'm not letting you throw that away." Sarah's breath caught. In the weeks since she'd pulled the silver arrow from his shoulder, they'd become something she didn't have words for. Not quite friends, not quite more. Something that existed in the space between exile and hope. "If it comes to choosing between killing the vampire and losing you," she said softly, "I choose the vampire's death." "And if I choose differently? Then you'd better be ready to stop me." They stared at each other, the weight of incompatible futures pressing down. Finally, Kara cleared her throat. "Hate to interrupt your moment," she said dryly, "but we have company." They turned to see a wolf approaching the camp, alone, exhausted, barely able to walk. One of their scouts, Sarah realized. She'd seen his death weeks ago, knew he'd die delivering crucial intelligence. "Report," Lucian ordered as they helped the scout sit. "The capital," the scout gasped. "Your brother's calling a gathering, all the territorial alphas. 2 weeks from now. Mandatory attendance. Why? To crown himself High King, to unite all territories under his rule. The scout spat blood, and to present his new allies. Vampires, Kara breathed. He's going to formalize the alliance publicly. Which means we have 2 weeks, Lucian said. 2 weeks to prevent him from corrupting every territory in the north. The scout grabbed Lucian's arm. One more thing. He's offering amnesty. Says if you present yourself before the coronation, he'll grant you exile instead of execution. Let you live if you abandon your claim. That's, Kara started. A trap, Sarah finished. He wants Lucian to walk into the capital willingly, wants to execute him publicly before the other alphas. How do you know? Because I've seen it. The vision had come weeks ago, one of the first futures she'd glimpsed. Lucian in chains before a throne, his brother's hand on his shoulder, the vampire whispering in the shadows. If you accept that offer, you die. No ambiguity, no alternate futures, just death. Lucian nodded slowly. Then we don't accept. We crash his coronation instead. With 80 wolves against hundreds? The scout asked. That's suicide. No, Sarah said, the pieces finally coming together in her mind. That's opportunity. All the territorial alphas in one place, all seeing the vampire alliance with their own eyes. If we can expose it, turn them against him. We wouldn't just retake one territory, Kara finished. We'd unite all of them against the vampire threat. Or we'd all die in the attempt, the scout added. Probably, Lucian agreed, which is why anyone who wants to walk away can do so now. No judgment, no shame. This fight was never meant to be suicide. No one moved. Then we start preparing, Lucian said. We have 2 weeks to become an army. The scout looked at Sarah, and she saw the question in his eyes before he asked it. Will you tell me how I die? You already know, she said gently. You saw your ending the moment you chose to be our scout. Yeah. He smiled, tired but genuine. Guess I did. Just wanted to hear it from you. Make it real. You die bringing us intelligence that saves 20 lives. You die making victory possible. A good death. The best kind. He closed his eyes, and within minutes the life left him, exhaustion and injuries finally claiming what had been kept at bay through sheer will. They burned him that night, according to wolf tradition. And as the flames rose, Sarah felt the weight of what was coming settle more firmly on her shoulders. 2 weeks until they crashed a coronation. 2 weeks until she channeled sacred fire and burned away the corruption threatening their world. 2 weeks until her gift finally showed her own ending. But also 2 weeks with Lucian, with Kara, with wolves who'd chosen meaning over survival. She'd take it. They moved the camp 3 times in the first week, staying ahead of patrols that grew more frequent as the coronation approached. Lucian pushed the warriors hard, drilling them in formation tactics and coordinated strikes, turning individual fighters into something resembling a military force. Sarah spent her time differently. She walked among the gathered wolves, met their eyes, and told them what she saw. Not all chose to hear it. Some preferred to face death unknown, but most wanted to know, wanted to understand what they were giving their lives for. You'll die protecting the eastern flank, she told a young alpha named Dimitri. Arrow through the throat, but you'll take down 3 enemies first. Will it hurt? He asked. No, it'll be fast. Good. He nodded. My father died slowly, always said it was the waiting that was worst. To an older female warrior. You'll die in the throne room itself, blade through the heart while you're guarding Lucian's retreat. Does he survive? In that future, yes. Then it's worth it. Again and again, the same pattern. Sarah would show them their ending, and they would accept it with grace that broke her heart. These weren't mindless soldiers following orders. They were wolves who understood the cost and paid it anyway. You're giving them peace, Kara said one night, watching Sarah finish another reading. I've led warriors into battle before. The uncertainty is what breaks them, but your gift takes that away. Or it gives them too much time to dwell on the inevitable. Maybe. But they're choosing this. You're not forcing knowledge on them. Kara paused. Have you looked for me again? Since that first day? Yes. And? The same. You die laughing, surrounded by enemies, buying time for others to escape. Kara grinned. Perfect. You're insane. Probably. But I'm a warrior. This is what we do. She sobered slightly. What about him? Sarah didn't need to ask who. Still nothing, no matter how many times I look. That scare you? Terrifies me. Sarah pulled her cloak tighter against the cold. Everyone else, I can see their threads leading to endings, but Lucian's just stops, like he walks off the edge of my sight. Maybe he's the one who survives, the one who rebuilds after. Maybe. But Sarah had her doubts. In all her years of seeing death, she'd learned that the ones who mattered most rarely survived their own stories. The second week brought new challenges. Food grew scarce as they avoided established hunting grounds. 2 warriors deserted in the night, fear finally overcoming conviction. And reports came back of increased vampire activity near the capital, more of the creatures arriving for the coronation, their presence corrupting everything they touched. It's worse than we thought, one scout reported, his face pale. The trees near the capital are dying, just withering to dust, and the wolves who live there are changing, getting aggressive, paranoid. The vampire presence is poisoning them. How many vampires? Lucian asked. At least 5 that I saw. Could be more hiding. Sarah felt sick. 5 vampires. The sacred fire might kill 1, maybe 2, but 5? Against 80 wolves and a handful of desperate hope? That night, Lucian called a final council. I need to be honest with you, he said to the assembled warriors. Our odds are terrible. We're outnumbered, outpositioned, and facing enemies that shouldn't exist. If you want to walk away, now is the time. No one moved. We're going to split into 3 groups, he continued. The main force, 60 wolves, will assault the southern gate, draw their attention, make them commit their reserves. Suicide, someone muttered. Distraction, Lucian corrected. While they're focused south, a second team of 15 will infiltrate through the old water tunnels. Their goal is to reach the territorial alphas, show them the vampire corruption firsthand. And the third group, Kara asked, will be me, Sarah, and 5 volunteers. We're going for the throne room itself, going to end this where it started. Sarah felt her blood run cold. That's not what we planned. Plans change. Lucian met her eyes. You said the sacred fire needs a conduit. You said it would burn through whoever channels it. I'm not letting that be you. You can't. I can and will. You're the one who sees truth, who shows others their purpose. You're more valuable alive than I am. His voice softened. Please, Sarah. Let me do this. The vision hit her before she could stop it. She saw Lucian standing in a circle of silver fire, saw him burning, saw the vampire's power turning back on itself, saw him die with peace on his face, knowing he'd saved his territory. But she also saw what came after. Saw his brother's rule collapse, saw the vampires scatter, saw the territorial alphas unite under new leadership, saw a future where mercy and justice coexisted, where strength meant protection rather than domination, saw everything they'd been fighting for become real, and saw herself standing over Lucian's grave, alone again, carrying the weight of his sacrifice. No, she said flatly. Sarah, I said no. She stood, facing him across the fire. You want to die heroically? Fine, die fighting your brother. Die protecting your people, but don't take away my choice to do the same. This isn't about choice, it's about, what? Protecting the weak Omega? Anger surged through her. I've been protecting myself since my pack exiled me. I've survived alone in the wilderness. I faced vampires in vision and lived. I don't need you to save me." "That's not what Isn't it?" She stepped closer. "You see me as something to be saved, something precious that needs shielding. But I'm not fragile, Lucian. I'm the one who sees everyone's death. I'm the one who carries the weight of endings. I'm the one who the goddess marked with this curse gift. I know that. Then let me use it." Her voice broke slightly. "Let me be more than a prophet who watches others be brave." Silence fell over the camp. Every wolf present was carefully not looking at them, though they were obviously listening. Finally, Lucian spoke quietly. "What if I'm not trying to save you? What if I just don't want to lose you?" The honesty of it hit like a physical blow. "I don't want to lose you either," Sarah admitted, "but we don't get that choice. We get to choose what we die for. And I'm choosing to die making sure that vampires never corrupt wolf territories again." "Then we do it together." Lucian extended his hand. "No more arguing about who sacrifices themselves. We both walk into that throne room. We both face what comes. The vision showed only you. Visions show one future. We'll make a different one." His hand stayed extended. Together. Sarah looked at his hand, at the calluses and scars of a king who'd never stopped fighting. Looked at his face, at eyes that had seen her not as cursed or broken, but as someone worth following into darkness. She took his hand. "Together," she agreed. Kara broke the moment by clapping slowly. "Beautiful. Touching. Now can we finish planning this doomed assault?" "Despite everything," Sarah laughed. They spent the rest of the night finalizing details. The main force would attack at dawn when the vampires were weakest. The infiltration team would move 2 hours before, giving them time to reach the inner chambers. And Lucian's group, now including Sarah, would enter through the Old King's Passage, a secret route that led directly to the throne room. "One more thing," Sarah said as the council was breaking up. "The territorial alphas. I need to speak with them before the coronation." "They're all in the capital," Lucian reminded her. "Guarded, watched. Then we send a message, something that will make them listen." What kind of message? Sarah thought of all the deaths she'd seen, all the futures branching like cracks in ice, thought of the vision the vampire had sent her, of its voice promising that compassion was weakness. "We tell them the truth," she said. "We tell them that the Vampire Alliance will kill everything they've ever protected. And we prove it." "How?" "By showing them what I see." It took another day to prepare. Kara had contacts still in the capital, wolves who'd stayed loyal but couldn't openly rebel. Through them, they arranged a meeting in the old catacombs beneath the palace, where territorial alphas sometimes gathered for private discussions. Sarah would attend, along with 2 guards. Lucian wanted to come, but they all agreed his presence would be too risky. So instead, she would go alone into the heart of enemy territory and try to convince the most powerful wolves in the realm that their host king was a traitor. "This is insane," Kara said as they prepared to leave. "They could just execute you on sight." "They could," Sarah agreed, "but they won't." "How do you know?" "Because I've seen it." She hadn't actually, but confidence was important. "This meeting happens. What comes after depends on what I say." The journey to the capital took half a day, moving carefully through patrolled territories. By the time they reached the old catacombs entrance, night had fallen completely. 7 alphas waited in the torchlit chamber, gray wolves and brown, scarred veterans and younger leaders, all of them radiating power and suspicion. "You have 5 minutes," the largest one said. "Northern pack," Sarah guessed by the accent. "Speak or die." Sarah stepped forward, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I'm a death seer. I see endings, and I'm here to show you yours." "We don't believe in children's stories," another alpha scoffed. "Then let me prove it." She looked at each alpha in turn, let her gift flow. "You, the one with the scar across your face. You'll die of old age, surrounded by grandchildren, if you make the right choice in 2 days. Or you'll die screaming as vampire poison dissolves your insides if you let the coronation proceed. The Alpha's eyes widened. How did you in the corner. You'll lose your territory to raiders within a year if the Vampire Alliance stands. Or you'll lead the Eastern Reach to prosperity if you help us stop it. One by one, she gave them their futures, both paths, both choices. The vampire corruption is spreading, she continued. Every day they remain, they poison the land itself. The trees die, the water fouls, and eventually you'll die too, because vampires don't form alliances. They consume. These are tricks. One Alpha protested weakly. Guesses. Are they? Sarah turned to him. Your mate died 3 years ago in childbirth. Your daughter has your eyes but her mother's smile. You named her Aurora because she was born at dawn, and you're here because you're desperate to believe there's a way to protect her from what's coming. The Alpha stumbled back. No one knows those things. No one but someone who sees truth. Sarah looked at all of them. I'm asking you to trust what I'm showing you, to remember that mercy isn't weakness, that honor matters, that what we protect is more important than what we conquer. And if we refuse? The Northern Alpha asked. If we tell the king-to-be about this meeting? Then you all die in 2 days, exactly as I showed you. And the territories fall to vampire rule within a generation. Sarah met his eyes without flinching. But you won't refuse, because you already know I'm right. Silence stretched. Then, one by one, the Alphas nodded. What do you need from us? The Northern Alpha asked quietly. When the fighting starts, remember which side serves life and which serves death. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. And when you see silver fire, don't interfere. What happens in that flame is necessary. She left before they could ask more questions. The journey back was faster, relief making her steps light. They'd done it. The territorial Alphas would turn against the vampires. The tide was shifting. But as they approached their camp, Sarah felt it, the absence where presence should be. The wrongness that said something had changed. They came over the rise to find the camp empty, not attacked, not destroyed, just empty. A single figure waited by the dying fire, Lucian, alone, looking at something in his hands. They took Kara, he said without looking up. She went to scout the capital's defenses, never came back. Sarah felt sick. When? 2 hours ago. Found this where she was supposed to meet her contact. He held up a scrap of cloth, red-stained. It's a message. My brother knows we're coming. The others? Scattered, waiting at rally points. We can still gather them, still make the assault. Finally, he looked at her. But they have Kara. They'll torture her, make an example of her. Sarah closed her eyes and looked, saw Kara chained in the throne room, saw vampires circling her, drawn by blood and pain, saw her die, not laughing this time, but screaming. We can't save her, Sarah whispered. Not without sacrificing everything else. I know. And if we attack now, we're exactly where they want us. I know that too. Lucian stood, every movement heavy with grief. But she's my soldier, my responsibility. I can't just let her die. You can, Sarah said, hating herself for the words, because she would want you to, because the mission matters more than one life. Even hers? Especially hers. Sarah touched his face. She told me she wanted a good death, a meaningful one. This is the death she chose when she joined us. Lucian closed his eyes. I hate this. So do I. Sarah pulled him close, let him rest his forehead against hers. But we honor her by finishing what we started, by making sure her sacrifice matters. They stood like that for a long moment, two broken people holding each other against the weight of impossible choices. Then, Lucian pulled back. Gather the others. We attack at dawn as planned, and when we win, when, not if, we make sure everyone knows Kara's name. When we win, Sarah agreed. But privately, looking ahead to tomorrow, she saw a battlefield covered in bodies she recognized, saw sacred fire burning, saw endings that couldn't be avoided, saw, for the first time, a glimpse of her own death. Not complete, not clear, but present, like a shadow finally stepping into light. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they would either save their world or die trying. And for the first time since exile, Sarah was at peace with either outcome. Dawn came cold and red, the sun rising like a wound in the eastern sky. 73 wolves stood ready. 7 had deserted in the night, choosing life over meaning. Sarah didn't blame them. "Remember the plan," Lucian addressed them. Voice carrying across the gathered fighters. "Main force assaults the southern gate. Make noise. Make them think we're all there. The infiltration team goes through the water tunnels, reaches the territorial alphas. Make sure they see what's happening." "And you?" Dimitri asked. The young alpha Sarah had told about the arrow through his throat. "I'm taking 5 volunteers to the throne room. We end this where it began." 6, Sarah corrected. "I'm coming." No one argued. By now they'd all accepted that the Deathseer went where she chose. The volunteers stepped forward, 4 veterans who'd fought in border wars, plus 1 young wolf who'd lost his entire family to vampire raids years ago. All of them knew this was likely one way. "We move in 1 hour," Lucian said. "Use the time to make peace with whatever you need to." The gathered wolves dispersed to prepare. Sarah found herself sitting by the small fire they'd allowed, watching flames dance and thinking about how many last fires she'd seen. How many final moments before warriors walked into endings they'd known were coming. "You're quiet." Lucian sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Thinking about what comes after. After we win. After we die trying." She glanced at him. "Have you made peace with it?" "No, but I've made peace with the necessity." He was quiet for a moment. "What you said to the territorial alphas, about showing them their futures, did you really see all that?" "Yes. And ours, mine and yours?" Sarah hesitated. "Pieces, fragments, nothing clear enough to be certain. But something." "Yes." She turned to face him fully. "I saw silver fire, saw it burning, saw you and me and Sarah woke to softness, so unexpected after weeks of sleeping on frozen ground that for a moment she thought she'd died. Then pain reminded her she was very much alive. Easy." Lucian's voice, close and rough with exhaustion. "Don't try to move yet." She opened her eyes slowly, found herself in a bed with clean linens. Sunlight streamed through windows overlooking snow-covered mountains. "Where?" "The palace, northern wing." Lucian sat beside the bed, bandages covering his arms. "We won. The vampires fled or were destroyed. My brother abdicated, and Kara survived. Barely, but she's alive." The gift? Sarah already knew, but needed to hear it confirmed. Gone. The sacred fire burned it away. Sarah tested the absence, looked at Lucian, and saw only the present. No death, no futures. Just him, alive and whole and here. "I'm not sorry," she said quietly. "Neither am I." He took her hand. "The territorial alphas want to form a council instead of one high king. Shared power, shared responsibility. They want you on it." "Me? But I'm—" "The Deathseer who saved the realm. The Omega who channeled sacred fire." He smiled slightly. "They want your voice in how we rebuild." Before Sarah could respond, footsteps announced Kara's arrival, limping but grinning. "There's the fire caller," Kara said, settling into a chair with a wince. "Come to tell me I'm supposed to be dead. I saw you die laughing, surrounded by enemies." Yeah, well, the enemies were too busy burning to surround me properly. Kara's grin widened. You changed my ending, Deathseer. We changed it together. They talked for an hour, about the battle, about survivors and the fallen, about the slow work of rebuilding trust. When exhaustion pulled at Sarah again, Lucian guided her back to rest. Will you stay? She asked at the door. Do you want me to? Yes, I've spent years alone. I don't want to go back to that. Then you won't. He sat beside her. I'm not going anywhere. They sat together as afternoon faded to evening, two exiles who'd found something better than the kingdoms they'd lost. When I'm healed, Sarah said eventually, I want to go back to the temple, see the sacred fire again. I'll go with you. And after that? After that, we figure out what comes next. Together. Lucian pressed a kiss to her temple. No visions, no predetermined paths, just us and the choices we make. Together, Sarah agreed, the word feeling like a promise. Outside, the first stars appeared, and in a temple in the mountains, silver fire burned eternal, waiting for the next time it would be needed. Spring came slowly, melting snow and revealing land that had been corrupted by vampire presence. But the earth was healing. Sarah could see it in green shoots pushing through dead soil, in streams running clear again. She stood in the temple clearing, watching silver flame dance on white stone. 3 months since the battle. 3 months of healing, rebuilding, learning to exist without foresight. Still no visions? Lucian asked, approaching from the forest trail. None. When I look at the flame now, I just see fire. Sarah smiled. It's strange. I wanted the sight to stop for years. Now that it has, I almost miss it. The purpose? Yes, knowing I carried something important, even if it hurt. She turned to him. Now I'm just me. Just you is enough. He moved behind her, arms wrapping around her waist. The Territorial Council passed your proposal. Rotating leadership, seasonal councils where each territory hosts and leads in turn. Really? They're calling it revolutionary. He kissed her neck. They also want to name you Keeper of the Flame, official guardian of the sacred fire. Sarah looked at the silver flame, remembered how it had consumed her gift. I don't know if I'm worthy. You channeled it, saved our realm with it. His arms tightened. You don't need visions to be worthy. You just need to be who you've always been. Someone who saves wounded kings in the snow, who speaks truth to power, who burns herself to ashes so others can live. Someone I love. Sarah's breath caught. They'd implied it for months, but neither had said it aloud. I love you too, she whispered, even though I can't see your future. No one knows how long they have. That's what makes each moment precious. He turned her to face him. I can't promise forever, but I can promise this moment and the next and all the ones after that I'm alive to give. That's enough. That's everything. They returned to the palace for the Spring Council, representatives from all 5 territories, plus Kara representing warriors, plus Sarah representing Omegas who'd never had voice before. The discussion turned to trade routes, defense coordination, rooting out remaining vampire presence. Sarah contributed where she could, her ideas welcomed not for her lost gift, but because they made sense. After the council, Kara found her on the palace walls. Big day, Kara said, settling beside her. First full council with Omega representation. Historic. Terrifying. What do I know about governing? More than most. You've seen how choices ripple. Kara handed her a flask. Did you ever think we'd survive? No. I expected to die on that battlefield. But you changed the future, showed me endings aren't fixed. Kara met her eyes. You gave me hope, the belief that tomorrow might be better than today. That night, Sarah dreamed. A figure waited by the temple flame, radiant, with eyes like moonlight. You did well, child, the goddess said. the sight was never meant to be permanent. Just a tool for this specific moment. It taught you to see truth, to value life. You were my prophet, and you fulfilled your purpose beautifully. What happens now? Now you live. Make choices without knowing their ends. Love without seeing how it concludes. The goddess began to fade. You are free, Sarah. Use that freedom well. Sarah woke beside Lucian, watched him breathe, marveled that she couldn't see his death. For the first time, that felt like a gift rather than a curse. Summer arrived in full force, bringing warmth that finally drove winter's last traces from the northern territories. Sarah stood on the palace balcony, watching preparations for the solstice festival, the first celebration since corruption had been purged. Nervous? Lucian asked, joining her with wine. About the festival? No. About what comes after? Yes. Tonight she would be consecrated as keeper of the flame. The festival began at sunset. Sarah watched wolves from all 5 territories gather, once rivals, now allies. When her name was called, she stepped forward. I was exiled, she said simply to the crowd. Cast out because I saw death and people feared what I could see. For years I thought I was cursed. The crowd listened in silence. But that curse became our salvation. The sight that made me outcast let me see corruption before it spread too far. She paused. I'm telling you this because sometimes what we fear in ourselves becomes exactly what's needed. Sometimes our greatest weaknesses are secretly our greatest strengths. She gestured to the ceremonial flame. This fire burns for all wolves who've been cast out, all who've been told they're not enough. I declare it burns for everyone, Alpha and Omega, strong and gentle, warrior and healer, because we need all of us to build something better. The crowd erupted in cheers. After the ceremony, celebration swept through the city, music, dancing, stories under stars. Sarah found herself pulled into conversations until Lucian rescued her. Want to escape? He asked quietly, desperately. They slipped away to the northern wall, where mountains silhouetted against stars. I keep expecting to wake up, Sarah admitted. Keep thinking this is a vision. It's real. We fought for it, bled for it. Lucian pulled her close. We made it mean something. I just realized I have no idea how long we'll last, how long before the next crisis. Neither does anyone else. That's just life. But it's the first time I've lived not knowing, she laughed. The first time I've had to trust tomorrow will come without seeing proof. How does it feel? Terrifying, amazing, real. She looked up at him. I can't see our future. Can't see if we grow old together or if something cuts us short. Good. He kissed her gently. Because I want you to live each day as it comes, to be surprised by tomorrow, to choose our future instead of seeing it predetermined. They returned to find the festival in full swing, wolves dancing, celebrating, wolves who'd been enemies becoming friends. That's what we fought for, Sarah murmured. That's what we'll keep fighting for, Lucian agreed. Every day, choosing mercy over violence, compassion over cruelty. Later, they climbed to the highest tower. From there, they could see everything, the city, the territories, the mountains where sacred fire burned eternal. I love you, Sarah said. Whatever comes, I choose this. Choose us. And I choose you. Lucian wrapped his arms around her. The death seer who couldn't see my death. The woman who changed our world by refusing to accept endings as inevitable. They watched dawn come slowly, painting the sky rose and gold. Watched the world wake to a new day. Ready? Lucian asked as the sun cleared the mountains. For what? For whatever comes next, together. Sarah thought about sacred fire and death visions, about exile and redemption, about all the wolves who died believing their endings mattered. thought about the slow, patient work of building something better. "Yes," she said finally, "I'm ready." Hand in hand, they walked down to meet whatever future they'd chosen. No prophecy to guide them, no visions to warn them, just love and hope and the sacred certainty that mercy could crown even the fallen. The sacred flame burned in its temple. The territories stood united, and two exiles who'd found each other in the snow had become the foundation of something new. It was enough. It was everything. It was just the beginning. If your heart beat alongside ours, like, comment, and subscribe, because every soul that joins our moon keeps the flame of redemption alive.